it's very tempting and it's very easy to allow just the loudest voices inside an organization. Sometimes that's in the sales group, sometimes it's in other areas. But if we don't take the time to do deliberate research and really apply a professional approach, then companies market to the loudest internal voice, not the actual customer. And that's, in the B2B world, in my view, mistakes are so expensive. A lack of research and a lack of a clear foundation is an expensive risk to take when you're talking about this kind of price tag.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition Podcast, an auditory journey through the latest in marketing, branding, and advertising. Now, here's your Marketing Expedition guide, Ray Allen.
On this episode of the Marketing Expedition Podcast, I get to speak with Leslie Galbreath, and she is the president and CEO of DGS Marketing Engineers, a strategic marketing communications firm serving some of the most respected industrial and manufacturing brands in the world. For over 25 years, she's helped B2B organizations turn complex value propositions into clear, compelling positioning that drives measurable results. Her leadership blends rigorous research, market insight, and a proven framework for scaling brand influence in technical sectors. A sought-after speaker and advisor, Leslie is known for her straightforward approach to marketing strategy, particularly within the advanced manufacturing, automation, and industrial spaces. She and her team have built enduring client relationships by developing not just ideas, but sustained marketing impact. As a woman leading in a heavily male-dominated industry, she is also passionate about mentoring the next generation of marketing professionals in STEM-related fields. She has spoken on stages across major industrial marketing events and is regularly sought out by global B2B brands for strategic counsel. And we're also going to talk about B4B and what that means to them and how they use B4B as a part of their strategy. So let's get into the interview. But first, it's time for the Marketing Essentials moment, the basics that you need to help you continue to build your brand and your bottom line. Today's topic, I wanted to dig into B2B, and we will talk to our guest speaker today who really does a lot with B2B and B4B, as she calls it, and you'll see that what Leslie says. So first, I just want to come up with and share with some questions that people might have when they want to work with a B2B marketing agency instead of maybe doing some of the work in-house, for example. So when you hire an agency, you will need a senior strategy and an execution without the cost and time of building a full team. So hiring agencies like ours and like Leslie's, it helps when you have people who already have done the work and can execute on strategies and have proven processes in place. And really the best agencies bring those proven playbooks, specialized talent, and measurable outcomes. And we're going to talk a lot about that in our interview. The next thing I was going to bring up is if you question, well, how do we know that a B2B marketing plan or strategy will actually drive sales and not just build awareness, for example? And when we think about the strategy and the plan that we want to identify and align with who your target audience is, especially in a business organization, there's a lot of different decision makers to appease to in the messaging, and understanding how you're going to talk to each of those people that might have a different view on what it is that they're buying. And we're going to have everything from the engineers who actually use the tool or the product all the way to just the procurement people who are there just to process the money and, process the RFPs or RFQs. Request for proposals or request for quotes, right? And so if you think about the different types of people that are in a B2B scenario and there's multiple layers of decision makers, what can you do to make sure that the messages for each of those layers are in alignment with what their needs might be in that entire buying decision? So how do we know B2B marketing will actually drive sales and not just awareness? Well, B2B marketing drives sales when it's tied to a very clear ICP, buying committee messaging, and tracked conversion points. So meetings booked, opportunities created, revenues influenced, not necessarily just the vanity metrics. All right, another question. We've tried marketing before and it didn't work. What would be different if we hired a B2B agency? The difference is the focus and measurement. A tighter ICP, a stronger offer, proof-led content, and a follow-up system that converts interests into booked conversions or conversations, right? Booked conversations is just as important as ultimately getting the conversion. Another question that you might ask, well, your pricing is higher than other options. Why? The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Higher pricing can generally mean that there's higher value, and it usually reflects senior expertise, stronger creative, tighter project management, better accountability, and if the work produces qualified opportunities and reduces waste in your spending, because agencies know what they're doing, ideally, then it's often cheaper in the long run, and it's more low cost. Even though you might be paying a higher price for the agency, you're paying for the value, you're paying for their expertise, you're paying for all of the experience that they have, right? So that is completely why you might be paying for a higher price, right? Sometimes you get what you pay for. Another question that's asked, well, we don't have the budget right now. So if budget is tight, start with a smaller pilot that proves ROI, just like a mini audit or a marketing audit or a 90-day sprint, and then scale to what works and spend as you go based on performance of what's working, right? Sometimes I do try to say longer than 90 days, but I know in this day and age, sometimes that's what you got to do. And then continue to build on what is working and not what is not working. So another question you might have is, we need results quickly. How fast can B2B marketing work? So there's lots of different industries and different ways of going about it and sales cycles, and, big ticket items can take a lot longer, more people in the decision-making process. But if you can at least start to see some early signals within the 2 to 4 weeks of engagement, and if you're retargeting those audiences, you're getting booked meetings, you're having conversations that lead to conversions, it will help you consistently build your pipeline with ideally the right people in your pipeline. But sometimes it does take a while to get to the right people and to continuously hone in on your processes and continuously get to those decision makers that you need to get to. And it all really does depend on the length of your sales cycle. But if you can do things to help accelerate the sales cycle and do things to help continuously be top of mind when it's time, then you could maybe look at 60 to 120 days as an expectation. Again, obviously a lot of caveats here based on your industry and your sales cycle, but at least having a baseline of what and how long it takes for your typical salespeople or your company or your business or your leaders or whoever it is that's doing the selling of the product or service, right? It can at least start to identify with getting some traction, getting some booked meetings set. So if your sales cycle is long, does marketing still help? Absolutely. So in long B2B sales cycles, marketing builds trust. It educates the buying committee. It helps keep you top of mind so that deals move forward instead of stalling, right? They want the information when they want the information. They need it now or when they're ready to make a decision. So if you can continuously build on the relationships and the messaging that you're putting out there, continuously building that trust, then marketing will still help. Another question, we already get referrals and we rely on word of mouth, right? Why do we invest in B2B marketing? Referrals are really great, but unpredictable. And marketing turns growth into repeatable systems so that you can not just always rely on unpredictable timing, but you can actually start relying on the timing and not just luck, but also the channels that you're purposely, intentfully using. So yes, referrals are wonderful. We love referrals, but what are we doing to accelerate those word of mouth referrals? And how are we going to continue in a process and system, build those referrals and reward those who give us those referrals, right? And how do we measure ROI in B2B marketing? By tracking as much as you possibly can. I always say measure what you treasure, dump what you don't, automate what you hate, delegate to elevate. All of these things, if you can track and measure and use leading and lagging indicators, target account engagement, how many meetings have been booked, how many people showed up to those meetings and had interest, how many of those people were decision makers that showed up to those meetings, and how many opportunities were created, what's your win rate or your close rate, what revenue is influenced by your actions and activities that you're doing, plus cost per opportunity, and plus understand the cost per acquisition. So how much are you spending to create your clients, right? So spend money to make money, but how much of that money are you spending? And how much of those clients become clients? And what's the lifetime value of those clients? There's a ratio involved. There's some math that we like to track. So we know if what we're doing is working. And if we're spending a lot more and not getting as many clients, then we know there's a problem. But if we can continuously, consistently spend less, but gain more clients, then we know that we're dialing in the process all the better, okay? Another question that might be asked, we don't want to be locked into a long contract. So again, if you are in a position where you need to do a 90-day sprint or 90-day pilot or whatever you want to call it, usually I try to do 6 months at the very minimum, but I get it. This day and age, we have to be nimble. We have to pivot when we can and, dump what we don't want anymore that's not working and what to stop, start, keep, or tweak doing on a regular, ongoing basis. Because what worked yesterday may not actually work tomorrow because things are changing so rapidly. So a smart approach is to do a 3-month to 6-month, depending on your sales cycle and how long things take. It can take longer, but have clear deliverables and success metrics and understanding of what those kept promise indicators are, or key performance indicators are. I like to call them kept promise indicators. So then you can do a month to month or a 6-month scale plan once performance is proven. So again, performance-driven key performance indicators, right? Those are all things that we want to consider. Another question, we tried ads and they were a waste. I bet you did, and I bet you have, and I bet we all have tried ads that are a waste and have failed, right? I mean, we can be the best marketers in the whole wide world, but you know what? Until you do iterations and prove and test the messaging and imaging and all the things that can go into your entire funnel or your whatever it is that you're building, right? Ads will fail. There's no doubt about it. But if we can get really good and do the research as much as we possibly can and do the due diligence, then the idea is that we won't fail as often and we will fail forward on purpose. So ad fails when targeting and when offers are too broad, sometimes that will fail. So there are things that can waste your money and we don't want to do that, right? We want to make sure that what we're doing is working. So B2B ads work best when aimed at a very defined audience of who we want to go after, right? Paired with proof and case studies and followed by tight sales follow-up sequencing. Follow up, follow up, follow up. That is the key, right? Half the battle is showing up and the other half of the battle is following up, right? Those will lead to conversations and conversions. Another question, our industry is too niche. Will this still work? Niche industries, right? Niches make riches, they say, often perform better because the audience is clearer. We can get really dialed in on who we're after. And so the key is precise positioning, industry-specific proof, and content that answers real buyers' questions. And remember, lots of different types of buyers that are involved in a decision of a big purchase. Another question, we need more leads, not branding. In business-to-business, branding and lead gen aren't separate. Trust is in the conversion factor or conversation factor too. Proof-led creative, so case studies, video, outcomes, testimonials, increases in response rates will all improve lead quality over time. And it is not an overnight success. No matter who you are, no matter what industry you are, no matter what business you have, yes, there can be proven, best practices, and there can be ways that we've done it before that have worked before, but we know that every single business out there has its unique selling proposition, its unique offering, and so we want to position that unique selling proposition just right to the right audience at the right time so that we can make sure that we are not wasting money. Another question, we don't have time to create content. You really don't need endless content. You just need the right content and the right assets. And if you have those 2 to 3 case studies or stories to tell of good outcomes, then having a strong offer page and a small set of sales to enable those pieces, then you can help answer those objections and book those meetings, right? Everyone's going to have some sort of objection, like we're going over here. If you can have answers to those questions, legitimate answers, like helping somebody from an educational standpoint and, giving them good value and information, it's going to help them in their decision-making process. You're building that trust. It's certainly going to help speed up that process. And another question that comes up, well, how do we know that you understand our business? Well, we start with our marketing audit, and we start with the discovery process. In any agency, that's a really good way to start, with understanding the business that they're about to help market, right? The due diligence and the diagnostics, and understanding where the numbers are that they may already be tracking or not, and aligning those success metrics and understanding what's going to help build that brand and that bottom line, and understand what those triggers are going to be for the buyers to want to buy or object, and understanding the decision-making process and really doing the research. And we're going to talk so much more with Leslie on this topic, and she's got some really great nuggets of wisdom to share. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get into the interview. Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm your host, Ray Allen. I'm the president and CEO of Peppershock Media and the founder of the Marketing Expedition community. And today's guest, we have Leslie Galbreath. Welcome to the show, Leslie.
Thanks for having me, Ray. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So I always like to just give a further in-depth background, a little bit about your history, your path, and kind of what got you to where you are now.
Well, I'm happy to share that. It's an interesting path. You can tell me if it's too much information or not enough. But I think of myself as an accidental entrepreneur, to be sure. If you had asked me, I'm in my 26th year now at my agency, 30 years in communications. If you had asked me prior to joining the agency if I would be a business owner, or if I thought I would be working in an advanced manufacturing, automation, industrial specialty, I probably would have, not agreed. That was not my intended path. But life is interesting and it takes us in interesting directions. And so I have spent some time early in my career working in women's healthcare. I've also worked in investor relations in the food franchising industry, and ultimately moved back to my hometown in the Indianapolis area, which is where I am now, because I needed to help my family. My father was ill and my mom needed some support. And so I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, working for a company that people may remember called Schlotzsky's Incorporated. It's a great sandwich company that was founded in Austin, and I was doing some public and investor relations. And in the course of that work, I had the opportunity to work with a very cool local advertising agency. And that was my first experience working with an agency. And shifting gears, then I needed to relocate. And quite frankly, I needed to find a job, right? And so I was looking through the websites way back in the day. I think it was Career Builder. I'm not even sure that still exists. But looking for jobs that sounded like me. And I saw an advertisement for a public relations associate at an agency here in Indianapolis. And I thought, that could be me. I could do that. And so I literally did the job interview in a U-Haul driving back to Indianapolis with my 2 Siberian Huskies in tow with me. And now I own the agency. So it's been an interesting journey, to say the least, but one that's been very rewarding, and I'm happy to have had.
Nice. Well, and I think I like it when people say it was accidental, but things all happen for some reason or another.
Yeah, they do.
Wow. I can relate to talking to people while traveling in a U-Haul or, moving something somewhere. That's really fun. So, why don't you share with me a little bit more about what you're doing now in the agency and kind of who you serve, and maybe if there's a particular client that comes to mind that you'd like to share more about, then let us know.
Sure. So I'm now the president and CEO of DGS Marketing Engineers, and we are in our 40th year of business, which is a long lifetime for an agency, especially one that's as specialized as we are. We are almost entirely focused in the advanced manufacturing, industrials, automation space. So very niche, very focused. That is our sweet spot for sure. We are a B2B agency. We refer to it actually as B4B for a lot of reasons. That's our positioning, that we are built for business. Mm-hmm. And we are a full service agency. And when we say full service, we really mean that. And I say that because we don't function in the same way that a lot of agencies do. And that's not a judgment, right or wrong. It's just a different way to approach business. We have very long-term client relationships, some that span decades. And we function as an extension of our clients' marketing department. So we're very immersed in their business, their culture. We have a seat at the table, so to speak. And that gives us a unique, attachment to accountability for our results and contributions. So coming back to the full service approach, we do everything along the marketing communications spectrum, from primary research, design, and deployment, which is a really important part of the strategic planning that we work on, including strategic planning, crisis communications, and then all of the things that you would associate with a typical agency, maybe, design, advertising, social media, digital, website development. Core competency of ours is public relations. But we also do event management. So in most cases, we have very long-term relationships with clients. That's what we seek. We're not typically the agency you reach out to if you just need a singular project done, though we do that from time to time if they're, agency or industry friends. So we're very specialized. We do some fractional work inside of our clients because of the depth of our relationship. But when we say full service, we mean it.
That's great. So can you maybe give an example of a particular journey that you went through with one of your clients that you're particularly proud of, or that, produced the results that everyone would smile about?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, one journey that's always very satisfying is when we're engaged by an organization to develop its identity from the start. And so we've had this experience several times. We earn a lot of our business, interestingly enough, through referral. We don't do a lot of marketing. They always say that, the agencies is sort of like the cobbler's children have no shoes. Mm-hmm. We don't spend as much time marketing ourselves as we focus on our clients. But we're lucky enough in the industry where we specialize to get good referrals. And so clients who move companies often bring us along, so to speak. And so through the course of those referrals and new experiences, we've had the occasion a few times to develop the name of an organization, and not just the name, but the visual identity, the brand identity. I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier today where you talked about the psychology of color. And it's extremely gratifying to be involved at that level where you really get to define the parameters of what is this brand going to be, what position is it going to own, in the marketplace, in the hearts and minds of customers. And when we start to take that journey. Sometimes it's a branding exercise, but very often in our case, we've been very lucky to be kept on board with these organizations and help them see through, whether it's through supporting them as an agency or fractional work that we do, and really help them build out the business and be part of the value creation proposition. And that's always extremely rewarding and exciting for everyone on the team.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about the team. Like, what size do you have, or like how many people do you work with, and tell me more about your agency and kind of the structure you've got.
Yeah, so we are a small agency by design. We're 15 people. That's really our sweet spot in terms of culture. It's also, I have a business partner. His name is Alkis. He's fantastic. We have very different skill sets and talents, so we complement each other well. We are both leaders, I suppose, who like to keep engaged enough. We're not the kind of CEO and CMO that likes to sort of sit in the corner office and sort of watch things happen. We're very much a roll up your sleeves type of team. Everyone is. Mm-hmm. So we're 15 people, but we have all core functions on staff. And I think that's an important part of an agency model, to make sure you have those services in-house. So whether it's writing, strategy, video development, social media, you need to have those in-house, and then we flex those resources with a flex staffing model as we need them, which allows us to control overhead costs, and then give better costing to our clients. So we're located in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is incidental almost. We have very few clients in this immediate area. We have a few great clients here, but the vast majority of our clients are across North America and around the world. Wow. We go where the best industrial and advanced manufacturing brands are. So we're a very global agency, which is fun for us. I've gotten to see some incredible places, and we talk regularly to people in different parts of the world, which gives you, I think, a rich worldview and an interesting perspective on life, but certainly marketing as well. We also have employees in California, Ohio, and South Carolina. So we've spread out a bit to optimize talent. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know it's like people either work in office together or they can work anywhere. And really, the world the way it is now, it doesn't matter where you're at, as long as you're getting the work done.
Absolutely. We have a hybrid model here at the office since coming out of COVID. We're 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. And then obviously our remote people are working in a different way. But it allows us to, I think, make the most of sort of quiet time that allows you to maybe concentrate a bit more. We have always been very good at sort of the digital working environment, because working in so many time zones, we were good at digital meetings and those kinds of things before COVID, thankfully. Mm-hmm. But we also like the notion of in-person collaboration. It does feed the creative process in a unique way. Yeah,
certainly does. So I guess one of the things that you really can lean into and talk more about, if you can, is the B2B strategy. And when you're working with your clients, like, what are some of the things that you do to help make sure that strategy is aligning with not just marketing, but sales and leadership and all the different areas that a business needs to be in alignment with?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, coming back to our focus areas in manufacturing, industrials, automation, these are all B2B environments, or again, what we consider B4B environments. And in most cases, we're dealing with very complex information. And these are also complex industrial organizations. And in my view, when you're working in that environment, marketing strategy has to start with sound business objectives. And from sound business objectives, that's how you root your marketing objectives. I am very much a believer in the research, planning, implementation, and evaluation approach. We added a fifth step to that. We call it drive, which allows that evaluation portion of the process to really fund the next step of planning. Mm-hmm. That approach, I think, allows us to bring the rigor of consumer marketing to the B2B environment, which I think is essential today. years ago when I started in this world, there were different standards, right, for consumer marketing and B2B marketing. And those lines have really blurred with the Amazonification of the world, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's forced us all to up our game strategically and really hold fast to the idea that sort of strategic alignment is non-negotiable. Strategy is an operating system, not a campaign, not a particular activity. And so I think keeping our B2B clients rooted in that notion is mission critical to their success. And there are unique challenges in the B2B environment. Some of that is to do with the way B2B companies are structured. Some of it's to do with the way sales and marketing are aligned or misaligned in some cases. Some of it is to do with the temptation inside a B2B environment to measure outputs versus outcomes. I think, it's easy when you're not working in a consumer environment to become preoccupied with outputs and activities, but it's important not to confuse motion with momentum, so to speak. So those are all things that we're thinking about with our B2B clients.
Right. So maybe think about some specific tactics or just, executions that were deployed through the strategy and the planning and everything that, the upfront work that, say, a company did get aligned and the way they're supposed to be in an ideal scenario. What are some things that you've seen that have worked really well in this B2B environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So something that's certainly true in the B2B environment, especially when you deal with a lot of capital equipment purchases, which is a lot of what we're marketing for our clients. Mm-hmm. These are very expensive purchases, high-tech purchases of equipment that often have to be integrated into larger complex systems. Mm-hmm. These are not buys or purchases that are made online, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Very, very few. They're not impulse buys. They're long considered purchase cycles, and there are many decision makers in the process. Mm. And so, one of the challenges that we ran into, certainly during COVID, and we've continued into sort of the post-COVID era because it has worked, is the notion that we have to find ways to let customers sort of kick the tires, I guess, so to speak, of this equipment. And events weren't possible during the COVID experience for all the reasons we know. And so we got very good at doing virtual events where it would give our customers the opportunity to explore the technology in the most realistic way possible to keep the pipeline, full of orders. And that's not an easy thing to do when you're talking about a large scale machine tool or robotics or, things like that. So, we think of objectives as our why, we think of the strategy as the how, and then, it's essential that you think of tactics really last, because if tactics can't be laddered up under a specific business and marketing objective, then they're just sort of noise. And so our objective in this case was to find a way to bring that technology to life in a virtual environment. And that's translated in the post-COVID era to doing live virtual events in different ways. So that's worked for us. It's been interesting.
Want to start a podcast but don't know where to begin? At Poderific, we don't just produce podcasts. We help you create auditory experiences that will captivate your audience. Our state-of-the-art podcast recording studio, powered by Peppershock Media, is designed for creators like you. Record with high-quality equipment supported by our expert team and distribute your podcast across major platforms like Apple and Spotify. Whether you're launching your first episode or you're a seasoned podcaster, we got you covered. Visit Poderific.com today to learn how we can help you produce, record, and share your story with the world. Your podcast deserves to be Poderific.
Do you find, like you said, there's a lot of different decision makers in the process. Do you find that it's often, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a percentage, like 50% of the time, let's say, that the people who are buying the end product or the, like you said, the piece of machinery or whatever it might be, that they're not even the ones that are using it or that even know like how to implement use of the said product. Is that, you know, like where, yeah, where you're trying to convince somebody in layman's terms why this is a good value or why this is a good product, or, you know, but they're not even the ones that are using it, right?
Yeah, 100%. You're spot on. In many cases, this is a layered decision-making model, right? So it sometimes depends on the size of the customer. If we work with job shops a lot, which, you know, are smaller organizations, and in those cases, it's maybe a flatter decision-making model where the owner of the business is also a machinist and can sort of connect all of those dots together. That person knows how to run the machine, program a machine, you know, deal with industrial automation. In that case, it's a flatter model. In some cases, you've got procurement people involved. And so, if it's an enterprise business, you've got people in different countries in that department involved. You've got engineering teams, you've got product specialists. So it can be a quite diverse decision-making group. And I think that's one of the reasons it's important to keep in mind, while we work in a B2B environment, businesses don't actually make buying decisions, right? People are still making the buying decisions. And so we have to find a way. Someone you interviewed recently talked about the relevance of the target audience, and that there are folks out there trying to diminish the value of. That's not an old marketing idea at all. I completely agree with her. That's an essential underpinning of how you determine the channels to use and what needs to be said. And in these multi-layered decision-making models, we have to meet the needs of a lot of different people, and that's not an easy exercise.
Right. You have to carve out the messaging that's going to be specifically for the, not necessarily the decision maker, but the influencer of the decision maker versus the person who ultimately is going to end up using the actual, you know, machine or product versus the people with the money. You know?
Absolutely. And they connect to totally different buying criteria. So that is a big part. You've hit the nail on the head of how we craft messaging strategy and why it is so important that research funds that exercise. One of my pet peeves when I sit down with a new client, for example, is when we start to ask discovery questions. We have a process that we call Intelliquest, and it's a process we use to uncover the information we need to develop strategic plans. And it's always a red flag for me when you talk to leadership and you ask them about their target audiences, and they say something like, "Oh, I've been doing this a while. It's just a gut feel," or just trust me. This is how they think. And I think that sort of removes the independence of the buyer and these multi-level buyers. It's our responsibility as marketers and really as organizations to understand who these people are, what's important to them, you know, what messages are going to connect to them because they address pain points or opportunities they have.
Yeah, famous last words. Just trust me. I know. It's all in my head. I have it all dialed in. I know what I need.
Yeah.
And maybe not. And they're usually not their own target audience, generally speaking, right? They think they know what their target audience wants because they like it or they think it's going to help and resonate with themselves. But we have to get them out of their own shoes for a minute and empathize with who they're actually wanting to target. And yeah, I can definitely see how that can be a pet peeve too, because they don't always know. They don't always know.
they don't know. And when we don't take the time to do thoughtful, considered research, and there are many different ways to do that, right? But it's very tempting and it's very easy to allow just the loudest voices inside an organization. Sometimes that's in the sales group, sometimes it's in other areas, but if we don't take the time to do deliberate research and really apply a professional approach, then companies market to the loudest internal voice, not the actual customer. And that's, you know, in the B2B world, in my view, mistakes are so expensive. You know, a lack of research and a lack of a clear foundation is an expensive risk to take when you're talking about this kind of price tag.
Oh yeah. No, I can definitely just envision a meeting with somebody who's a talker, who thinks they know it all, versus the actual person that really should be the one that you're talking to. I've been there. I can relate to that very much so.
Yeah, for sure.
So in that process, you go through, I love that you said you called it Intelliquest?
Yes, Intelliquest.
So is that a proprietary thing that you've developed and made and like surveyed and just come up with your process to uncover and discover? Tell me a little bit. Well, you don't have to give away the farm, but share a little bit about, what are some of the things that you do in Intelliquest?
Yeah. So thank you for asking that question. These are the things, again, as a marketer, I don't think enough to talk about what we do. So I appreciate that question. It is a trademarked process. It's a process that we have used but evolved over certainly the 26 years that I've been here. And it is a deliberate, structured discovery process where we use quantitative measures, qualitative measures to draw out the information we need from our clients to develop strategic plans. The Intelliquest, we sort of tap into the powers of Intelliquest differently based on the challenge that's at hand. And the process allows us to evolve as we learn more. So inevitably, the discovery process is a multifaceted process, right? It's not one meeting and you take off and you've got enough to do to put a plan together that makes sense. So it involves secondary research, competitive landscape profiling, stakeholder interviews, sometimes quantitative research, voice of the customer research. We try to be as comprehensive as possible, but suit it to the client's needs. The way they sell affects how we approach discovery. Sometimes we're talking to channel partners, sometimes directly to customers. So it's a process that works well for us. It's again informed by the 4-part strategy that research really needs to guide everything that follows. And if we do that well, we then are able to set measurable objectives that support, the greater business objectives and ultimately value creation.
So I'm really curious to learn how you can talk to the customer and get the customer voice, because it seems like they're so busy all the time, and to give people the time of day, to give us marketers time of day. Yeah. Do you have any advice or tactics that you seem to think that really do work to get that such critical piece of information from the actual customers? I mean, surveys, I don't know, bribery, you tell me, what works?
Well, I can only speak for myself and for our experience with clients. It's really underlining the risks of what happens if we don't do that. Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to identify the cost of uncertainty in business anymore. Mm-hmm. In so much as it's too high a price to pay, right? Yeah. There is volatility in the global economic, atmosphere. There's changes in markets. In our world, manufacturing, it's a pillar of our economy, but it's changing. And I think maybe it might be interesting for us to talk about how the pace of business is really driving so much of this change. Mm-hmm. So in my view, if someone reaches out to us, and we are certainly lucky in this regard because most of our business comes from referral, and part of that referral is, probably a delivery of some expectation of what our process looks like. Mm-hmm. So maybe they know a little bit about what they're getting into when and certainly I'm fully transparent about that when we have initial meetings, how important that discovery process is. But I think if you can effectively underline the risk of not going through that process, mm-hmm. we tend to get people to the table. But it's also a prerequisite of ours, just as a sort of business principle, that if we can't get decision makers committed to that stage of the process, that's probably not the best fit for our agency.
Yeah, that's a big red flag. Yeah. That just means that, I can relate to that too. Yeah. Understood. So when you are doing voice of their customers, like your customer's customer, mm-hmm. When you get to talk to those folks that have already purchased, who have already been, loyal customers, if you will, have you found that one-on-one interviews or surveys or focus groups, or like what kind of tactics have you taken there to actually capture that voice of the customer that is so meaningful?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do all of those things. And from my view, it works best to do the qualitative research before you tee up the quantitative research. Focus groups and stakeholder calls give us great cues. They tell us what we might need to explore or dive a bit more deeply into when it comes to quantitative research. Choosing the customers is an essential part of success, and we work really hard with our clients to make sure that we don't just get their happiest customers, and that's uncomfortable. You know, that's an uncomfortable ask to make, and so it requires trust, and that's I think something else you've talked about recently on your podcast, the importance of building trust with clients, because you know, I'm not to get too off subject, but I am an advocate for some kind of licensure when it comes to marketing, because I think about to some extent, I think there's maybe a sentiment that if you're a consumer, you can also be a marketer, right? I don't know if you've run into that with in your world, but everyone thinks they're a marketer, and there's actually quite a lot of, you know, education and training and expertise that goes into getting good at this, and there is scientific method. So I think keeping that in mind, that there's an expert approach to this, and part of that is building trust with your clients, because you can't speak to just the happiest customers and get a clear picture of what's going on in the market. So we try to get a cross section of those people. If our clients are selling through distributors or channel partners, those folks always have really good insight into where maybe some of the challenges lay, because there's a layer between the customer and the client. And so those people are great in terms of uncovering opportunities for improvement. So we usually start with those qualitative types of research, be they individual stakeholder interviews, group interviews. We do that in different ways. And then we look to channel that to try to build, you know, some statistical significance around what we find, so that we can project that across groups of other stakeholders, be they customers, channel partners, and sometimes even internal stakeholders. I mean, I'm sure you've run across that too, where the alignment, your first customer is really the internal parts of the organization. To get them, sometimes wishes have to be granted, organizational changes have to be made. Again, I'm an advocate of the notion that marketing should not be about getting other people to agree with us. It should be about listening to what they need and trying to give that to them. And I think that's maybe an unconventional way of thinking of it, but if we think about marketing as the role of marketing simply to persuade, that's not going to have as long lasting an impact as if we actually listen to the customer and our stakeholders and reflect back to them what they need. And that to me is a critical part of all communication.
Yeah, no, it definitely can uncover some good information that, you know, your client may not even have heard or knew about from their end user, who, you know, their customer voice too. That can be very valuable for sure.
I think it is. And sometimes it's surprising. Sometimes it's not what they want to hear. But, you know, if an organization is really, if they've set their mind to improve and grow, they take that information on board, and it's feedback they can use.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Leslie, I just want to give you a moment to share maybe anything else that we haven't really. I mean, we could talk marketing all day, right? We could talk strategy all day.
Yeah, we could.
But I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to share that our audience could learn from you?
Oh my gosh. Now you've put me on the spot. I wonder if you can edit this pondering portion.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess maybe I would elaborate on why we call what we do B4B versus B2B. That's our positioning, built for business and engineered for impact. And I don't mean to be salesy when I say that, but it is an intentional thing for us. because I think the world of B2B, again, those lines have blurred between B2B and consumer marketing. And so we think of it as B4B because in my mind, B2B, there's too much tendency to think of it as a transactional environment. And I think it's important as marketers for us to stay focused on long-term sort of enterprise impact. When I think about industrial sectors, again, that being our focus area, the stakes are quite high. Capital investment is expensive. Safety has to be a top priority. Operational continuity is extremely important. So for me, understanding the downstream impact of our clients' products, services on their customer is essential to being good at what we do, and positioning our messaging and really everything we're doing in marketing around business transformation, not just product features and benefits. And again, when you work in a technical industry, there's such a temptation to just lean into features versus outcomes. When we do that well, it starts to shift the conversation from, okay, here's what we sell, to how our clients can actually improve your business. And that's elevating. I think B4B thinking elevates what our clients can offer. It makes them not just a vendor, but a strategic partner for their customers. Right. So I think that's important.
So it's kind of like you're saying, business before the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like the things you need to do before you can even get to the business that's going to then be the business that sells. I got you.
Yes.
That's really clever.
Yeah.
Tell me about the name. Why DGS engineering? Like tell me what kind of, what does that stand for? So DGS marketing engineers, what does that mean?
Yeah. So the story of DGS goes back to the founding of the business. I wasn't around for that, but it's the first initial of the last name of the three founders. Okay. So it's sort of a kind of a running bad joke that I had to find a partner that had a last name with a D, G, or S, and that worked out for me. So I had a G name, so it worked out. DGS works. For many years, we were DGS Group. And in the early 2000s, we started thinking about our close connection to the manufacturing and industrial world. And we thought about who is our target audience, you know, in a lot of cases, that's engineers. And so because we're such a planning and process-oriented, outcome-oriented organization, we liked the idea of thinking about marketing, again, not just as something you do, but something that requires scientific thinking, that requires strategy. And so we invented the notion of a marketing engineer. We connect and learn so much from engineers. Why not pull on that thread? And it stuck. It was a product of a brainstorming session at a company retreat. It was suggested actually by our media buyer at the time. You get great ideas from people, you know, who do very different things. I think that's very cool. And so that's where that came from.
All right. I do like it. Marketing engineers. I mean, yeah, it's definitely, it says who you are and what you do in such a simple yet eloquent way. So I love it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, excellent, Leslie. Thank you so much. How can people reach out to you if they happen to be in the manufacturing or, you know, like you said, all of the spaces that you serve? How can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. They're welcome to reach out to me there. And you can always find us at dgsmarketing.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Ray. It's been a pleasure. I hope this was okay. I hope it's useful for you.
Absolutely.
Good content for you.
Yes, absolutely. You did a great job.
Thank you.
And thank you. And for those of you who are listening, the best thing that you can do is share this with somebody you know that Leslie needs to get in touch with, or just share it out so that you can learn from some of the things that she had to share with us today. And until next time, everybody, enjoy your marketing journey.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Want to continue the journey? Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wouldn't it be great if there was one place you can go to get all the latest information and tips about marketing and advertising? The Marketing Expedition community is that place. People like you gather in our online community to build relationships with others and find the latest marketing trends, tactics, tools, and technology. We help you build your brand and your bottom line. Start your adventure today. Visit themarketingexpedition.com to find out more.